Okay, so Mike, last year at this point, the Seattle Kraken were wrapping up their debut season, 27 wins, 60 points, just like you and I are getting ready to watch the playoffs on TV. This year, not so much. And that's what a 40-point improvement will do. 100 points, ticket to the dance, and the man who put the team together joining us on the show, Seattle GM Ron Francis. Thanks so much for doing this, Ron.
My pleasure, Rob. Happy to be here.
What a difference a year makes. Do you remember what you were doing last year at this point versus what Ron Francis is doing this year, as the playoffs are kicking off?
The disappointing exit meetings at this point last year, but no, it's certainly been a lot more fun, this year. And it's, it's great to see the guys smiling and laughing and, on the buses and on the planes and at practice. So, happy for them and happy for our coaching staff and our fans in the city to have this opportunity to compete in the playoffs. It's great.
Ron, have you even exceeded your expectations? Last year, a couple of years ago, you're putting together this team, and it felt like you had a lot more challenges than obviously Vegas, maybe because of some of the precedents of all the trades that they were able to make. And you went a different route in building this team. Did you ever envision that year two that you would be sitting in this spot?
No, yeah, I think I thought I saw year one going maybe a little bit better than it did, and probably year two not going as well as it did. I said to some people last year, Mike, it sounded probably like an excuse at the time, but we had 19 one-goal game losses last year. We had 7 more that were one-goal games that became 2 with empty net goals. So basically 26 one-goal games and 52 points. It just seemed for whatever reason we couldn't get the goal when we needed it. We couldn't get the save when we needed it. But I felt we were a better team than maybe our record indicated last year. Certainly going into the second season and all the changes we had made leading up to it, getting some guys back healthy, we had hoped to certainly be better than where we were. But, did I see a 40-point increase coming? I'd be lying if I said I did.
Ron, your team just baffles me in such a good way in that, you're the 4th highest scoring team in the NHL this season, and yet you don't have a player in the top 50 in scoring, which, 13 different double-digit goal scorers. It kind of makes you shake your head as to how you could do it, but just how important was how deep your team was. And it just, the chemistry and everyone knowing they had to pull their weight, and there wasn't that top liner, that superstar scorer to kind of bail you out when you're in trouble.
Yeah, no, we don't have a player on our team making $6 million, which is probably not the norm in the NHL. We don't have that so-called bona fide superstar at this point. I think certainly Matty Beniers has the potential to get to that level. But we're deep, and the guys just kind of bought in, right? They work hard for each other. They're willing to accept and do whatever it takes to be successful. They don't really care who gets the success or the goal kind of thing. And we've had contributions up and down the lineup. Anytime you get 13 guys with 10 goals and multiple guy with 30 plus points, you have a chance to be successful. And I think that's sort of carried over to the success of our season this year. It's just contributions up and down the lineup.
We obviously know Dave Hakstol well here in the Midwest from his days with the exceptionally good UND program. What attracted you to him, and what about his coaching style has really assisted this team to get to the point that it is right now in the playoffs?
Yeah, so Dave and I first got to know each other a little bit in 2019 World Championships over in Slovakia. And we actually did a pre-scout together where we drove from Austria up to Czechoslovakia to watch a game and spend some time in the car just sort of talking hockey, and just sort of watched how he handled himself over the course of that tournament. It wasn't easy for him. He wasn't the guy on the bench. He was the eye in the sky, but just really a true professional, hardworking guy. And you look at his resume, what he did in North Dakota, and I know Philly took a lot of heat, but I think 3 of the 4 years he made the playoffs, and then Toronto, he's working under Babcock and in a pretty good organization there. So, just when we're looking for the piece, I thought he was the guy. He's very organized, very detailed, and I felt our situation was going to be a little bit different than Vegas. And you draft your expansion team, and basically 2 months later you're starting. So we have to move all those players, all their families, their cars, their dogs, you name it, into Seattle in a short period of time. And Dave has to get to know all our players and try and understand, what they're all about, and then teach a system. I think nobody saw COVID coming. We had to deal with that, which is kind of unique. And that sort of affected us last year. We had to shut down all our team gatherings and kind of get to know each other a little bit better. But I thought, from start to finish, as tough as that season was, he and his staff were true professionals. They never changed who they were, what they were trying to accomplish, and still tried to get the guys to buy in and compete. And I thought our team did that right to the end, even though our record, wasn't as well as we had hoped it would be.
Ron, does he get enough credit? I mean, we had a debate on our show last week about Jack Adams and who we thought should have won. And Mike, it might have been you who brought up Hakstol, and all of us kind of went like, oh yeah, like look at what this team has done. Look at this improvement. And maybe it's because, it's not necessarily the team that has the Connor McDavid or bona fide superstar, but what he's done with your team certainly warrants at least consideration for that Jack Adams, doesn't it?
I would certainly think so, and maybe even more so because we don't have those kind of bona fide superstars in our lineup, right? To get the whole team to buy in and do that and do it over the course of 82 games. I think people thought maybe we'd be better than we were last year, but I don't think there's many people, and as I said, myself included, that saw us putting up a 40-point increase. So, Dave and his staff certainly got to get a lot of that credit as well.
Ron, you all are known for your your expertise with analytics and all the advanced stats and things like that. I know you hired Alex right out of the gate. I know her well from her days here in Minnesota, and it feels like she's made quite an impact on your team as well as your rest of your front office. How much does that influence a lot of your decision makings on a team that was just here 3 weeks ago in Minnesota that to me looked like one of the deepest teams that we've seen in the National Hockey League, both up front and on the blue line?
Yeah, actually, it might have been that Alex hired me, Mike. She was here before me, and she was helping them recruit in the GM process with no guarantees that she would be given a job after. But once I was hired, we sat down, had conversations, and it became pretty apparent very quickly to me that she was worth trying to convince to sign on. And I'm happy that I didn't scare her away, but she's been great. I think for me, it's kind of a cooperative effort, right? We have pro scouts, we have amateur scouts, we have an R&D staff, we have a management team, we have a coaching staff, and I like to sort of working in a cooperative way where everybody has a say and an opinion, and at the end of the day, we got to make the final call. But certainly Alex with her knowledge, not only the R&D, but the game, has been very valuable to our process and our success to this point.
Ron, you mentioned Matty Beniers. I don't think anyone would really argue with him being the front runner by a long shot for the Calder Trophy. I saw an interesting stat, though. He never once this year won the Rookie of the Month award, which is interesting because I don't know anyone who's going to vote against him, but does that just maybe shine a light on his consistency? He'd never had any of those peaks and valleys. He just was good from game one on.
Yeah, no, you go back to last year, we brought him in for the 10 games. I'd be lying if I said I thought those 10 games were going to go as well as they did. And then as a GM, you're constantly worrying, right? So now he's going to go home. He's had the success. Is he really going to train as hard as he needs to train? But this kid is a true pro. He comes in training camp, and from day one, he's an engine for our team. He doesn't take a day off, whether it's practice or a game. He competes hard every night. You're worried this is his first time going through 82 games, and the travel, especially on the West Coast, being a little harder. He's going to have that dip. Is he going to get tired? There might have been small little signs of that, but overall, he's maintained it for the course of 82 games. Interesting that he wasn't Rookie of the Month ever during the season, but I have to agree. I think he's a strong candidate to win that at the end of the season.
Another young stud that you guys have is Shane Wright. And I remember back in November, I did a story when Seattle was in town talking to both Shane and Matty Beniers right before you sent him back to junior, Dave Hakstol as well. Talk about the path that you created for his development path. And I always got a kick out of people from the outside that aren't in your organization criticizing the way that you guys were that development path, when I thought it was always hilarious that people just felt like that maybe Ron Francis and Dave Hakstol didn't know what was best for this kid.
Well, it's a good thing I don't read those articles, so I wasn't too worried about them. But no, I mean, you read the same thing with Matty. You look at the player and you say, is it best for him to step out or step back in? We let him go back to Michigan last year, try for a national title. When it didn't happen, at that point, we felt strongly that it was the right time to bring him out and get him in the 10 games. And, he's certainly taken it and kind of run from there. in Shane's case, there's no really easy way, right? In a perfect world, you could put him in the American Hockey League if we were allowed to, but we weren't. So our choice is junior hockey or the NHL. And, at the end of the day, you got 5 exhibition games at the NHL level. You got 8 games during the regular season. So 13 pro games there. You got to go play in the top junior tournament of the world, be captain for Team Canada, win a gold medal there. And he got back to playing the junior. And now that their season's done, he's back in Coachella playing in the American Hockey League. So it's a process. Everybody takes sort of a different path, but at the end of the day, what we have in mind for Shane is what we think is best for him and best for the organization long term. We've had numerous conversations all points during the season with Shane and his agent and his family, making sure that they understand why we're doing certain things. And so everybody on the inside and on the know is very comfortable with the process we've taken. And, we're comfortable with what we've done with him to this point.
Has there been discussions at GM meetings or just with the league about maybe altering that rule in some way, shape, or form?
Well, I think every GM would love to have it happen. I think that's probably one of those things that you have to collectively negotiate, as a league and with the junior league. So I understand their point too. It's not an easy resolution, but selfishly, yeah, we would certainly like that.
Ron, we always talk about the old Hartford Whalers connection. I mean, it's just amazing number of scouts, coaches, GMs that played for those teams back in the day. What is in the water there? Why are there so many people that have excelled in a next career in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, it's hard to really put one thing on it. For me, it was a lot of us grew up at the same time, right? We're young guys coming through the league and kind of getting to understand it. If you remember back in the day, we played in the mall, which on one front, was great for us because, post practice, we could get together and have lunch, or, post game, a lot of times there was a place called Chuck's Steakhouse. We get a back room. So all the guys and their wives or girlfriends would be in there and having a bite to eat and a couple beers and talking hockey. Right. So we always seem to sort of have those discussions and talk a lot about the game, had a lot of passion for the game. And I'm not surprised that, a lot of us have continued into the game just because of how much we loved it and sort of grew up talking about it through those early stages of our careers.
Speaking of talking about the game, one topic that seems to come up with guys like us, and then also superstars in the league like Sidney Crosby, is the playoff format. Some people love the divisional playoffs. Some people want to go back to a 1 versus 8. I don't know if you'll tell us exactly which side you're on, but your thoughts on just the playoff format, because it seems as though there are pros and cons for each one.
Yeah, I know. At the end of the day, I think Commissioner Bettman and TV are they're gonna make the decision I think is best for the game. It was kind of, if you're on the outside, you're always saying, hey, we should have 9 and 10, and there's probably not a lot of difference between 9 and 10 and 6, 7, 8, especially in today's game with the parity. Here we are, everybody's done except for 2 hockey games, and we still don't know who we're playing, and Minnesota doesn't know who they're playing. So, it's kind of a crazy setup. I think there's so much parity. From a selfish standpoint, we had, I think 16 teams in the playoffs at 21 teams in the league, and now we're at 32 and we're still at 16. So you always hope that maybe you expand that. And when I first heard about the one in baseball, I thought, okay, this is kind of crazy. I don't like it. But now it's kind of been really interesting in watching that. And, the NBA has gone to it. So is that something we go to down the road? I guess you have to ask the commissioner on that one, and we'll see what he has to say about that.
Ron, you mentioned Minnesota. I got to ask you about Wild coach Dean Evison, who you know well from your Whalers days as well. He always talks about how he was a junior star in the Western Hockey League, but he gets all of a sudden he gets to Hartford, Binghamton, and he sees Ron Francis and Ray Ferraro, and he realizes right away I better turn my game to a different type of style. How impressed were you that this guy that came out of juniors as a scorer was able to sort of transition himself into a gritty, hardworking, defensive checking center?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that aren't able to make that decision, right? They are asked to play in a 3rd line role or a 4th line role, and in their mind, they're still a top 6 guy or an offensive guy or a power play guy, and they struggle with it. Dean, I don't know if he went strictly to defensive role, but he understood kind of where he was, and the thing I love about Dean was, and he was just so competitive, right? And you see it now, and his emotions on the bench and stuff. He's just a really competitive guy. he hates to lose, and those are the kind of guys you want to play alongside on your team. And it was certainly a thrill for me to play a few years with him in the Whale jersey for sure.
Ron, just that
One of the
last
best-
question for you. I did want to ask you just one other thing. Year 3 of an organization here in Minnesota and Florida, the 2 teams that I've covered, they went to one went to the Stanley Cup final, one went to the Western Conference final, and they had to sort of change their plan because of their early success. Do you see year 2, you go into the playoffs, that all of a sudden it sort of, one, changes expectations, but 2, now the development path of the organization?
Yeah, I know in discussions with our ownership, they've been pretty adamant as to how we want to build this. And in our discussions, development is really a key part of our building this organization. So when we get to the level we think we want to be at, we're able to, maintain and sustain it over multiple years. So that's still going to be a key factor in it. I'd be lying though. I mean, we're certainly in a different position than we were at the end of the last season. So if there are trades or free agents moves that we can make over the course of the summer to make this organization better, we're not going to hesitate to do that at all.
Ron, we're going to let you go. Luckily not to go do any exit interviews like last year. This year, it's a little bit different. Congratulations on a great season. We appreciate it. Good luck in the playoffs.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.